the coming of Jesus, the second coming, whatever. So those billboards are increasing. At the same time, though I haven't seen them here, some Jewish organizations are also, I think ADL or whatever, is promoting, it's against anti-Semitism, billboards, if you will, in defense of Jewish equality and security. So in any event, billboards are now flooding the country. When I was a kid, we would go for drives with my family, and there would be little signs along the highway selling shaving cream or other kinds of things. And that was what the highway was about. And now the highways are about religious persuasion. Second item, I promised Sukasa that I would mention this. There is a program called Israel at a Crossroads, a state for Jews or a Jewish state. Thursday, which is tomorrow, May 18th, which is tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 a.m. here. Should Israel be a Jewish state or a state for Jews? The participants include Aaron David Miller, who is extremely knowledgeable, senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment, and someone from the Hudson Institute Center for Peace, and a couple of others as well, moderated by Leo Lubowitz. This is promoted by Tablet Magazine. There is no registration. All you have to do is get a hold of Tablet Magazine and get the link. That's tomorrow, 11 a.m. our time, and make sure that Sukasa knows that I did this. Okay. Trouble looming is the first category. It's always wonderful to start off that way. So first of all, let me say hello to Lynn, to Merle. Hannah is here. Stacy, Joanne and the cat, Howard, Cindy, Kimberlyn, hi, Jax, Herb and Sylvia, actually Sylvia and Herb as I see it, Steve, Michael, Rebecca, Risa, you're not visible, and Patricia, Brad, and Perry. Great group. We're pleased that we're all here. Okay, category. Oh, more coming. Category. Trouble looming. Tomorrow celebrates the unification of. Oh, okay, Michael, that's fine. Unless you want to share your lunch with us. Okay. Tomorrow is the day annually in which we celebrate the unification of Jerusalem in 1967. It has a clever name, Jerusalem Day. And there is always a major celebration, reunification, Jerusalem 67. However, tomorrow, the celebration will be a procession of Israeli flags from Independence Park. I don't know if you know where that is, I do, but Independence Park in the center of Jerusalem, through the old city, through the Arab quarter to the Kotel. So there's going to be a mass procession of Israeli flags through the Arab quarter tomorrow. Appeals to change and reroute have been ignored. 2,000 police have now been deployed to try to control possible violence. The speeches will be led by the two people I warned you about, Smotrich and Ibn Gvir. They will be delivering the major speeches. They are likely to be incendiary, and most of the participants in the march will be Haredim. I don't know what there is to discuss, except to say my category for the first item is trouble looming. We could have a mess tomorrow or not if the police presence is heavy enough, but it is very threatening. Steve.
If it hadn't become such an extremist event, is it possible? I mean, I've always heard that many of the Arabs in Jerusalem are happy about the reunification of Jerusalem. And and what's happening this year is it's been like taken over by extremists.
I think the statement that many Arabs are happy with Reunification Day is probably not capable of being substantiated. I don't think that's true at all. The taking over of Jerusalem, reunifying, means that the old city, the Arab quarter, are under Israeli control. There is nothing positive about that from the perspective of even Israeli citizens who are Palestinian, nothing positive about that. It's going to be a potential mess. Okay, next item up. Why do I have a phone? Forget the phone. Potential spam. I will decline. The next item is that the 5-day mini war is over. A ceasefire has been negotiated by Egypt. Egypt brought the two sides together. Let me be helpful. What were the two sides in this war? What were the two sides? I can't hear you. Rebecca, you said something I didn't hear.
Hamas?
No, it was not Hamas. No, it was Islamic Jihad. The Islamic Jihad, the radical Iran-funded, please hold that in mind. Islamic Jihad is an arm of the military forces of Iran. They are the second most powerful group in Gaza, and Hamas stayed out of this war. Over 1,000 rockets were sent from Gaza to Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, the Negev, all over the place. But a ceasefire has now been reached. About 35 Palestinians, 2 Israelis died. The good news, and I'm always looking for good news, is that none of the substantive issues have been resolved in the ceasefire. None. So what the Israeli press has chosen to call this 5-day mini war is Operation Broken Record. I mean, that's pretty good, right, Steve? I mean, that's Operation Broken Record. So the war ended, the hot war. There is a ceasefire. Egypt negotiated. And it's kind of weird to say that Israel's tolerably positive relationship with Egypt is extremely important. Extremely important. The Egyptians are more threatened by Hamas than the Israelis are. Hamas infiltrated the Sinai desert and was blowing up Egyptian military installations. So Egypt clamped down on the Gaza border and shut it totally. Egypt is getting very big. It's over 100 million. Israel has made it to 9 million. I think that's good. Egypt is over 100 million. And they, again, are pivotal. Do you want to see something weird? Picture Jewish history. Let's take, for example, the Maccabee Wars. Who was fighting from the south? Egypt. Who was fighting from the north? The Syrian Greeks. Today, Egypt, Iran, Syria. The combat that Israel finds itself because of its geographical location is endless. Perry?
Yes. I have a couple of questions, if I might.
I'm sorry, you have your hand up.
I do have my hand up. I have a couple of questions, if possible.
Okay.
Well, first of all, you said that none of the substantive issues were resolved. Could you articulate what those substantive issues are for the group?
For one, Islamic Jihad is committed to the destruction of Israel. Israel views that somewhat negatively. Israel has economic, political, and military clamps on the Gaza area. You can say for a variety of reasons, but from the perspective of Islamic Jihad, intolerable, got to end. So those are two. The admission, what Islamic Jihad members want to be able to do is to cross through Israel and enter the West Bank. Why? To overthrow the Palestinian Authority. These are bad people. In any event, Barry, those are some of the issues that they're not resolved at all.
But it doesn't seem as though they could be resolved.
One could legitimately say that at the current state of affairs, getting a ceasefire in which Islamic Jihad promises to stop throwing rockets at Israel, and Israel promises to stop targeting Islamic Jihad leaders, 5 of whom, I think 5, have been killed in the past 2 weeks.
Actually, the number was 11.
Was it up to 11?
Yes.
Perry, do you have another question or you're good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Great. Howard?
I've read conflicting things about whether Israel promised anything, but I don't know whether what I read was definitive. I know that the Hamas or the Islamic Jihad say that Israel made promises like to stop targeted assassinations, but I believe I've seen that Israel stated that they didn't make any commitments other than
I'm just going to guess on the face of things that Israel had to make something to give to Islamic Jihad. It's got to always, in something like this, there's here and there's there. And what Netanyahu said was, in the presence of peace, we offer peace. Something like
quiet
that.
For quiet, yeah.
Yeah, quiet for quiet. So if Israel said, well, gee, if no more rockets are coming, we're not going to be bombing your installations, Okay. All right, Stacy?
Rabbi, what role do the allies of Israel with the Abraham Accords play within this whole mini war that you're
That's
discussing?
not something even I can answer, because if they offered any support, it was sub rosa, it was, underneath wherever else was going on. Israel's biggest problem, its greatest need, is to bring Saudi Arabia into the Abraham Accords. That stopped when China negotiated some sort of rapprochement with Saudi Arabia and Iran, but that's not expected to hold much water, frankly. It's not. It brought an end to some of the stuff in Yemen, but it's not going to hold much stuff. Israel is very, very, very committed to finding a way to bring Saudi Arabia in. And as I've mentioned in this group before, the only way any of the other countries came in was that the United States paid off big in military support for that Arab country, whether it's Morocco or UAE, whatever. So Saudi Arabia still arouses a great deal of dislike among American politicians. And I think, one might say for very good reason. And therefore, the United States offering Saudi Arabia a big military boost is guaranteed to create a furor. So things are complicated and nothing's moving right now in that vein. Okay, moving forward. All right. Would someone please, this, define for me, Miriam Alpern, I didn't say hello to you, but I certainly have missed seeing you. So hello, hi. What is the meaning of the word Nakba? N-A-K-B-A, Nakba. I see Steve. We'll see if you give a sufficiently good one. If not, everyone's going to attack you. Steve.
The catastrophe.
Okay, Michael, will you accept that?
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, good. Howard?
Yeah, it was the catastrophe of 5 Arab nations attacking Israel and trying to destroy it.
I don't think that's how the Arabs define Nakba, but I appreciate your perspective. The Nakba is the founding of the Israel Jewish state. That's what Arabs call Nakba. And the word is very, very latent. One of the things necessary in moving off of dead center in relationships between Palestinians and Israelis is for Israelis to be willing to use the word and understand how Arab Palestinians mean it. That's not the same as agreeing. But Israelis have been loath to use the word Nakba and don't want to hear why Arabs call the birth of a Jewish state a disaster. If there's ever going to be any movement, there can't be the removal of the discussion of the other guy's perspective, other person's perspective, even though we find that perspective loathsome. But you can never sit down at the table if you're not willing to say to a Palestinian interlocutor, all right, what is the Nakba for you guys? What is the disaster? You've got to be able to hear and then discuss that perspective. Okay, I see Howard, I see Steve, I see Perry. I see Michael who wrote it. No, okay.
I would, looks like it's, well, it might be backwards, but the March
But
edition of Commentary Magazine has a very nice, very excellent article about this subject. It goes back to the historical record in 47 and 48 and shows that what this whole Nakba thing is a recent invention, relatively speaking.
okay, by the way, Commentary Magazine, unlike my usual comment, good source, reasonable source. I wish I could see the names of some of the other authors besides Saul Stern, but that's a good thing. I certainly, for those who want a conservative perspective, that's a legitimate, good place to be. Are you surprised, Howard?
Well, I'm not surprised because you tend to go with reality, truth.
Okay.
Some of these articles are pretty awful, but in the commentary, and some of them are really good, in my opinion.
Indeed good. And how do I say this? If you're going to stick with history, you will never make peace. That's a harsh thing to say. Do we need to be aware of history? Do we need to know history? Do we have to agree that if you don't know your history, you're doomed to relive it? Yes, we need all of that. But history in the real... Do you remember the big debate when Germany started paying reparations to Israel in large sums after World War II, after the Shoah? And then all the Israeli taxi cabs turned out to be Mercedes. All, well, maybe not all. There were probably 3 or 4 that weren't. They were all Mercedes. And today, there is no stronger supporter of Israel politically than Germany. Do not ask me what they're really thinking. Okay? But as they say in Yiddish, tochas auf den Tisch, tushy on the table. Germany politically is a great friend of Israel. If we lived only in our history, that could not happen. Okay? France and Germany. Oh my God. How many of you people have had fun studying European history? Woo! You know, Germany, France, sometimes France, Germany, okay? All the time. And now Germany is the #1 force in the EU, and France is an active player. And in NATO. To argue about whether Israelis expelled some Palestinians in 48 is fruitless. First of all, because they did. Some Palestinians fled at the encouragement of their leaders. Some Palestinians, I don't want to do numbers and percentage, were driven from their homes. It's true. But the fault is it doesn't take us anywhere. That's the problem. We need to acknowledge, we need to be able to use the word Nakba. We have to acknowledge Israeli complicity along with, oh God, Arab multiple complicity. But that's not going to resolve today. There is no level of apology or forgiveness that can deal with the challenges of today. I see Steve, I see Howard, I see Perry.
Two problems. First, starting with the refugees,
I can't hear you, Steve.
starting with the refugees, it's got to be a two-way street. Where do you ever read about the number of Jews expelled by Arab countries, which exceeded those expelled, left, count them all, from Israel?
Actually, we see it frequently in academic journals. It is
But
acknowledged,
not from the people who need to also acknowledge that part.
it is acknowledged that 800,000 plus minus whatever were Jews were forced out of a variety of Arab countries. Yes, yes, and yes. Steve,
Yeah,
acknowledgement won't fix what's going on today.
no,
Yes.
but I'm saying if we're going to recognize their story, they should recognize our story. Number
Yeah.
two is
Number two.
I have a serious problem because once again, language, Nakba, in a sense, has its meaning, but it's come to have a second meaning. When they celebrate Nakba Day or call whatever they call what they do, commemorate, it's more than a recognition of the Nakba. It now built into the word is the idea that it's an affirmative call for present violent action to eliminate the state of Israel. So if we could say to them, and I agree with you, we should acknowledge how they feel, what they're doing, and why. But if they're going to change the meaning of the word, it's very hard to do that.
Okay, I get that, and I'm going to go forward to Nakba Day. That's on my little thingy here. Perry?
Yes, two things. Well, just one thing. First, in context of this current issue, Nakba does refer to the founding of the state of Israel. But within the Palestinian community, it's important to recognize that Nakba is used for two separate events. The first event was the founding of the state of Israel. The second event was for the 6-Day War, and that is also referred to as Nakba.
I accept that. And again, it falls into, Perry, it falls into forgive this. You're correct, so what? You're correct. It doesn't address today. And getting stuck in history is where a whole bunch of Israeli politicians are, and certainly a whole bunch of Palestinian politicians. And that's the core of why there can't be progress with the current cast of political characters. There just can't. I'm going to move forward a little bit. Nakba Day was May 15th. A neutral member of Congress, Rashida Tlaib, oops, did I call her neutral? That was a mistake. Tlaib promoted a Nakba observance in Congress and had the right, whatever, to have a public gathering in the House of Representatives. Speaker McCarthy canceled that right to use the House of Representatives. Stanley, don't be sarcastic. Say it. Bernie Sanders provided a meeting space for Nakba Day in a meeting room in Congress. The co-sponsor of the event, Jewish Voices for Peace. Among the keynote speakers was another moderate, AOC. This was ugly. It was ugly in every direction. That Tlaib is by far not a neutral peace seeker is clear. Neither is AOC, though she is trying to clean up her act a little bit. She has her eyes on a larger political future, and she knows she has to soften up her act. The Jewish Voices for Peace are totally in favor of a one-state solution which will eliminate the Jewish state. And increasing numbers of Jews, college students, belong to the JVP. It was very uncomfortable. And of course, the combat was great for the Palestinian cause. McCarthy canceled. Oh, what did he cancel? Nakba Day. What's that? Oh, in other words, fed the beast. And then Bernie Sanders, who is, if anything, a non-card carrying member of the JVP, made it worse. Part of me, by the way, just so that you know how conflicted a life I lead, was very sorry that Bernie Sanders didn't get elected president. Part of me is incredibly shehechiyanu grateful that he never was elected president. That's part of the problem if you're dealing with politics. I think that Bernie Sanders' comments on social inequity are hugely important. I think his attitude toward the state of Israel is deeply painful. Anyway, that's Bernie. It's amazing to me how many young people believe that Bernie Sanders was the second coming of the Messiah. Many young people. Okay, now we have Mohammed Abbas speaking before the United Nations. Good news. Abbas was finally able to speak truth. Israel and the Jews have no connection to the Temple Mount. It's all a fabrication. There is no Jewish connection to the Temple Mount. This is the head of the Palestinian Authority. Do you understand why I say there has to be a total change of characters in the political leadership before there can be anything resembling conversation? Having said that we have no connection to the Temple Mount, he compared the Israeli spokespeople to Goebbels. That didn't get a lot of applause. Then he demanded the right of return to all the 75,000 Palestinians who fled or who were expelled in 48. The number he estimates is in the millions of people. That's his starting point for negotiation. When he spoke before the United Nations, he wore a key in his lapel, symbolic of the fact that he still has a key to his ancestral home and he wants it back.
It's in Haifa.
Spoke at the United Nations since last we met. Any other comments besides the obvious? Howard?
Well, I would summarize that not only, it's good to understand where the other people are coming from and what they believe, but also I agree with you. You need to have a change of leaders, since their positions are so inconsistent with peace with the Jews. And also the same thing with Nakba. We can understand what they mean about Nakba, but there's not going to be any peace until their minds have changed to where they're not talking about Nakba.
I don't agree with that. I think they can continue talking about Nakba. I don't want to take any word out of the vocabulary of the other person. But what I would agree with is you have that perspective. How do we deal with today?
They have to stop talking about the apartheid state. You would agree with that, don't you? And about oppression.
I'd be delighted. That's different than Nakba.
Nakba is lies.
And you know, Howard.
Distortion of history.
And you know, Howard, Beinenu uveinatzmenu, just between the two of us. Israel has never been free of misrepresenting some of the situation within the Palestinian world. We can call that lying. I was trying to avoid that. But this has been going on since 1948. They have hurled at each other almost every imaginable charge. Ask them to walk it back. It's not going to happen. We should, when you start a political negotiation, the guy on the other side, the person on the other side, tell me your story. That's day one. Let them tell their story. Day two, we're going to tell our story. Day three, okay, how do we get from there to tomorrow? That's a much more important conversation. Does their hatred of the Jews, does the desire to wipe out the Jewish state make me furious? Yes. We can't stop there. What can we do to meet the needs of tomorrow's world? We're not going to get that sitting across from us. And we certainly aren't going to get that sitting across from the Israeli government today. Don't ask me to weep again over the loss of Yitzhak Rabin, a powerful military general who wanted peace. Ouch. That's why they killed him. Oh, who killed him? We did. We did. Stacy.
Rabbi, I totally recognize what you say about, you have to come together and kind of let, the past be in the past and tell the story, et cetera. But just two comments about that. Number one, if two parties aren't negotiating in good faith, then you can't have a rational negotiation. And I don't really understand how you can negotiate with someone who openly to your face says, I want you destroyed. I don't think that creates a good faith negotiation. So I don't really know if both parties, I mean, I'm talking about the Palestinian side, if they're not going to even attempt to negotiate in good faith, how do you negotiate with someone who who tells you flat out that, I wish you were dead, you shouldn't exist? I don't know how you get beyond that.
I am going to contest the fact, as you asserted, that there are not Palestinian leaders willing to negotiate in the kind of good faith you speak about. I say again, and please, I know it's hard to hear, it's a two-sided phenomenon. To say it's because of the Palestinian recalcitrance and desire to bring an end to the Jewish state, real? But that's not where peace will be found. Not there.
Well,
Not,
then it won't be found.
pardon?
See, I agree, and I think that's why it won't be found. Anyone who says I get everything I want or go away, there's no way to get peace if that's the starting position.
Steve, forgive me, I do want to move on, but that is precisely the starting position. I want you to be able to say, I hate Israel, I want it gone tomorrow or yesterday. Israeli side, the Palestinians are absolutely fractured, impossible to talk to, violent in their nature, and have done everything they can to destroy the one Jewish country in the world. Fine. Having said that, if we spend our time arguing over what the starting positions are, we are forever condemned to failure.
I agree. And what I'm saying is their starting position for many, many, many is not a starting position. It's the only ending position they will ever agree to.
And I am going to say to you, that's exactly what they say about Israel. That's exactly what they say. And that's why we need a new generation of leaders.
But Israel agreed to the Clinton plan. They agreed to the UN plan. Historically, you can show that one side is lying and one isn't.
No, you can't.
So it's Israel. That's
No,
not Israel's end
No,
game.
you can't, Steve, with all due respect. The lying is on both sides, one way or the other. Believe me, I believe Israel's position is more moral, more responsible, more reasonable. But we must not say they're the violent liars and we're the good guys.
I was only talking about lie on one specific topic, not everything. And you said Israel's ending position, and I'm saying Israel's conduct demonstrates they're open to other ending positions.
So Israel viewed new construction on the West Bank as a potential source of economic and political stability for the Palestinians. A new city was built in the Palestinian territory, built by the people who built Risa, the town between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, an Israeli architectural term that built Modin, it takes time, that built Modin, came in and was commissioned, paid to devise a magnificent new city, suburban business center we visited. We met the guy who funded it. But Israel refused to build a 2-mile road that would connect that city with Israel. End of comment. Refused over and over again. They wanted to strangle it. I'm sorry, Steve. It's just complicated.
Oh, I agree, and it's gotten worse. I mean, there's no, and today, I mean, agreeing to a two-state solution today is less likely by the Israelis than it was 30 years ago. I'm not saying there aren't problems, but I'm just saying that overall, you know, there have been opportunities, and it's consistently been one side that has prevented the solution.
And that's where I'm challenging. And you aren't hearing, and that's acceptable. I don't mind. You know, we raised 3 kids. I'm used to not being heard at all. But no, it's not one-sided refusal. Is it mainly Palestinian? I believe that. That it's one-sided? I don't believe that. I just won't go there.
Okay.
Now, we're running short always, so there are things to notice. The negotiations with the government over judicial reform is happening. Noise is coming from both camps. In order for Bibi to hold the Haredim in the coalition, they have been given a $3.5 billion boost in the budget to support Haredi institutions and to keep Haredi young people out of the army. Having gotten $3.5 billion, the comeback position is they want more money. That happened about 3 days ago. They want more money. What's happening right now, in terms of expectation, the budget must be approved by May 31. Knesset has scheduled a 35-hour session to finalize the budget. In that budget, they will be shoveling money into Haredi institutions to keep the Haredim with the government when June 1st and following, the serious negotiations over these radical changes to the judiciary will be debated. So, if you will, Bibi is paying huge amounts up front to hold his coalition together in case he has to back down from the very threatening proposals that are now supported by his ministers. You following me with that? This is real. And I'm just giving you timetable. June 1, the budget will be approved by then. Then all of these changes in Israeli civil and judicial society will be voted upon. What Bibi must do is back down, and what he's trying to stop is the defection of his support from the coalition in advance. So he's letting the Haredim know that if you don't support, that if you will accept all of this money from us, we expect you to support my backing down on some of the judicial craziness. Problem, who isn't attending the budget meetings? Ben Gvir is boycotting the budget meetings because he knows what's going on. Will there be a government in mid-June? No way to know. My second last comment, Israel placed number 3 in Eurovision. That's great. That's fantastic. And in case you're interested, Case Western Reserve University won its first national title in sports in tennis this week. And my alma mater never won anything, and it won something. So, okay, I accept letters of congratulations. Risa and I were invited to a private briefing by Daniel Hartman on Tuesday. It took 75 minutes. We took no notes and it wasn't recorded. I'm going to give just a couple of comments. Risa will give a couple. He was amazingly upbeat. Daniel Hartman, head of the Shalom Hartman Institute, key figure in Israel. These key points. For the past 20 years, Israel has focused on defense and economic development. It has been incredibly successful, and Bibi deserves much of the credit. 2, issues of domestic concern, religious pluralism, feminism, gay rights were never at the top of anyone's political page. Why? Because whenever there were conflicts, mom and dad stepped in to fix it. Who's mom and dad? The Supreme Court. So Israeli politics could focus on economics, defense, be extremely successful, let the domestic issues ride, because whenever things got hot, the Supreme Court was there to settle it back down. It was an activist, mostly liberal court. Bibi did a terrific job in defense and economics, didn't care about the domestic, and he is the father of the Abraham Accords. Now, things changed. Daniel Hartman, when Bibi had to make a he really gave Hebrew expressions for how far right it is. Far right coalition in order to regain the prime minister's position. In order to form the coalition, the courts were attacked. And this broke the compact in Israeli society, make the economy work, keep the defense strong, and if you guys go crazy with domestic, we have mom and dad. Now mom and dad are under attack, and Israel is going to places which the general population will not accept. In Daniel Hartman's words, we are seeing a domestic revolution. Risa.
I think it's important to recite the words that he kept using, was that the public is for the first time looking at not what we need to be today, but where we want to be tomorrow. What is our future? What would this Jewish state need to be? And he used the words a liberal, democratic country.
A liberal
liberal Jewish democratic country. And he said that that's what you're hearing in the street, in the protests. But you have to understand that the word liberal means something different in Israel. It means pluralistic. And that really hit home with me. It's a the pluralism has now, for the first time in our experience with Israel, become something stronger and more important than just the word religious. It's the message that the IMPJ, the Israel Movement for Progressive and Reform Judaism, has used all these years. And now it means something stronger and something that could change our attitudes about what do we talk about. He is extremely optimistic about this change on the ground, and that the entire revolution that's happening has to come from the ground up. It can't be from the leadership down. And right now, that's what we're seeing, from the ground up. And I'll just put in a little extra little word that Shoshana, our daughter, has been in Israel for 2 weeks, participating in the protests with a megaphone, shouting for liberal Jewish democracy for the state of Israel. And she also talked about the fact that the people on the ground are not just secular, which is the way the newspaper is showing it. They are secular, they are religious, and there are a small minority, but there are some Arabs who are in these protests against the government. And
Okay,
we should be optimistic.
so here we have what for Risa and me was an astonishing presentation. Didn't expect it. That Daniel Hartman, whose work, his writing in the press all over the place, has condemned the government, condemned the government, condemned the government all over the place, is now saying his language, you American Jews have 3.5 years to figure out ways to support the NGOs in Israel battling to create a new way of being Israel. His comment, which was not at all self-serving institutionally, we all have 3.5 years to take the real chance to create a new governing coalition with a serious focus on strengthening the democracy side of Jewish democratic. That's the key. That right now, instead of, I don't want to say just focusing on, rights for Reform Jews or building another Reform synagogue, the big battle is before the next election to be able to say, we will elect a government which is strongly democratic, liberal, Jewish, the way Risa defined liberal. There's so much more. Israel is at a liminal moment. We can change the future. What are you, and now I'm speaking to us, for Daniel, what are you doing to find the groups you want to support to help the process? I see 2 hands, and I'm going to have to stop, I guess. I see Stacy, I see Perry.
Stacy's hand was up first.
Yeah, Rabbi, just one comment kind of ties in. I was thinking of it relative to our discussion about negotiating in good faith. But one of the things that, as I understand it, happened with the Abraham Accords was the fact that Israel negotiated with some Arab countries that I was surprised they negotiated with. And part of the glue of those negotiations was economic development for those countries.
Okay. Stacey, I'm going to ask you to hold because you veered back to the other topic.
Okay.
And I'm talking now about the domestic. Perry?
Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to say that Yossi Klein Halevi, who delivered the inaugural Eunice Nazarian lecture last month at UCLA, said virtually the same thing that you're articulating now. And he's associated with the Hartman Institute.
Perry, he's more than associated. He and Daniel run it. They are
Fine,
one.
so he said it first.
You bet. I give him that. Okay. It was an astonishing presentation, a reason to have hope. And I want to run. Risa, you have your hand up?
Yeah. I just wanted to say, it's not who said it first, because I'm sure they've been saying it all over Israel, because we then heard it not a number of hours later from, what's his name, Naval? From J Street.
Yes.
And we were shocked to hear the same message.
This
This
is
is
the
the
message.
time to be optimistic. This is a huge change in Israel. And we were shocked because we
This is
first
a-
heard it as a Hartman statement, but it's bigger than Hartman.
It's much bigger. It is a potential sea change, optimism with a way for us to make a difference. And what could be better than that? I hope that we will all find ways to get involved in supporting pro-democracy forces in Israel. Now is the time. Goodbye, everybody. We're off to Atlanta. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Have a great trip.
Saturday
Thank
morning,
you.
Saturday morning regular.
We'll
Covertory
be here.
regular time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Fly carefully.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Ray. Thanks.